Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we have our first episode ever where we're diving into the talent stack. This is a phrase popularized by Scott Adams where he said, you don't have to be the very best in the world at a particular thing. You just have to be in maybe the top 20%. And if you can choose the handful of things that you want to be in the top 20% of, suddenly you can be really valuable in the marketplace. And we're going to dive in today with master ghostwriter Joshua Lisec into how to add persuasion to your talent stack. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Redbeard Brian, I am pretty pleased to be here with you today. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited because I grew up reading Dilbert. And it was one of the comics. I have all these, I have comic books of Dilbert. And when I, in my later years, started reading the books by this guy whose comics I loved and thought, wow, he's actually a really deep thinker. And then I don't know how many years ago it was, I came across him talking about the talent stack and I thought, wow, this makes sense. This is how I approach things. And I have my own way of describing it with a 3-Venn diagram approach, if folks have heard me talk about that. But the way Scott describes it is really beautiful. And I'd love to hear from you, your experience with building your own talent stack.
Yeah. Well, I built it out of necessity. I'll give kind of the quick little Joshua Lisec autobiography. When I was a kid, my dream was always to be a novelist. And I was able to pursue that pretty early because when you're homeschooled, you're pretty much self-taught. And I was able to creatively pursue writing. And that resulted in me getting a 2-book publishing deal when I was the ripe old age of 20.
Impossible. No one gets that. That seems like the person who wins the bodybuilding competition. Yes, we know that happens to someone, but it doesn't actually happen to anyone we know. So why do you think you were able to get that at 20?
Well, I had spent 3 years studying and writing my first novel for a category of readers that I had seen was pretty underserved, and that was men's fiction, specifically young adult men's fiction, bringing back this sort of action-adventure, caper heist sort of a feel. And I jokingly referred to the 2 books as sort of Indiana Jones for millennials, because we didn't quite have that same sort of character that Gen X grew up with. And so I thought, hey, why not try to capitalize on that? And lo and behold, good enough to get a book deal is good enough to get a book deal.
It's amazing that you started off your journey with victory, though, of course, that was after 3 years of work. But then I'm thinking when I was 20, I was still in college and I did not have victories like that. But you already had this direction where you knew that you were good at something and you'd had validation from the marketplace.
That's right. And I also had college professors who were saying, yeah, you might actually want to kind of skip the whole corporate thing and just be an independent writer. Like you could be a writer for hire. Your stuff's that good. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll test that out to see if I can validate that tip. And I declared myself Joshua Lisec, freelance writer for hire. My very first writing gig paid me a paltry $1.67 an hour. But it was the first time I had gotten paid directly for my writing services. I no longer charge that. However, having the fiction on one side and having the nonfiction on the other, writing copy and ghostwriting articles and ebooks and white papers and that sort of thing, while signing copies of my book and getting selfies taken with fans and sitting on, novelist panels, that resulted in something interesting happening, which was this. 2 clients of mine for my freelance writing business, independently of one another, found out about my novels, bought the first one, they both did, and then they reached out to me and said, Joshua, got a hold of your novel. You have written a book, and you are younger than the amount of time I have wanted to write a book myself, and you did it twice. So, obviously you're doing something right. Can I please have you write my book for me? And I said, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your memoir. And I've been saying, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book ever since then. And I'm currently working on my 60th, 61st, and 62nd books I'll have ghostwritten.
Now that's amazing. And folks, you might know that I have the Redbeard Accelerator where I help businesses deploy the right systems in their business. And one of the members of that is one of the numbers that Joshua just shared. So I have this bit of an inside view into the process that Joshua uses. And I can tell you that my unnamed client is very happy with being on Joshua's team for this. So while I've not experienced that process myself, I hear great things about the 60, I don't know, somewhere in there.
Yes. And usually a lot of people are like, how do you do it? The systems is definitely a part of it. Streamlining operations, scaling up the number of clients that you serve while scaling back the amount of time that you put into it. That's your thing, Brian. Like that's your wheelhouse. That's your area of expertise. That's your top 20%. You're the systems talent stack guy. What I realized is I'm only going to get word of mouth marketing and referrals sending business to me as a ghostwriter if the books I ghostwrite sell, if the copy that I write turns crazy results around for sales pages, because then you're not hiring me as a writer, you're hiring me to make you money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the first persuasion lesson I realized is it's not good enough to have writing that's good enough and enjoyable to read. It has to move people to take action.
Right.
And so what I found is that the nonfiction books I was writing early on for entrepreneurs, they were using to get clients. And after probably the fourth or fifth person told me, you know what, Joshua, I just began sending out copies of my book to potential clients, and that resulted in $1 million in new business this year. Thanks. I thought, I should charge a lot more
Yeah.
than what I'm charging. And I was seeing award winners and international bestsellers and a Wall Street Journal bestseller, all kinds of crazy stuff that you exactly want to see as a ghostwriter. But it's not just about writing well and sounding like the author. It's writing well, which means clearly. It is sounding like the author, being a ghostwriter. That's the point of my profession, right? And it is helping them find the best way to say what it is that they want to say, the most persuasive version. So I essentially learned persuasion. I added persuasive writing to my talent stack out of necessity. Because if I write a sales page for someone and it doesn't sell or sell as well as they wanted, I don't get rehired. I don't get referrals from that person. And the fact that I have been rehired and I have gotten the referrals is a testament to the fact that it's worked. So I had to learn kind of from scratch, no official formal education on persuasion. I've had to learn what works from the trenches. And yes, we've all read Influenced by Robert Cialdini and some of those books out there. Those tend to be more theoretical than tactical. It's finding really what is going to make your product or service click for your audience. And that's a little bit different. So persuasion is the result, it is the outcome, it is the end, it is not the means. So that is a persuasion principle to take away, to memorize, to, I don't know, if you want to tattoo it on the back of your neck, that might be a good idea. Persuasion is the end, it's not the means.
Let's talk about how someone who is an expert in their field, and let's assume that they are masterful at what they do, but when they go to write something, they get sort of lackluster results, even though what they're writing about is true and they actually are the best. Let's say they're the best in the world at what they do. You have this course, The Best Way to Say It, where you're talking about how you go from simply being a master to being a master who's actually selling stuff through persuasion. What does that translation look like between I'm really good and I know what I'm talking about to I'm really good, I know what I'm talking about, and now you want to buy something from me?
Yes, yes. Well, a few years ago, I began to formulate how to actually do the persuasion. If persuasion is the end, well, what are the means? What are the means, right? And there's a few different things that you can work into your long form content or your short form content that result in you being persuasive. So first we'll talk about this content framework, and then we'll get into a little bit of the tactics. Okay.
Great.
So the beginning with the framework, and I've dubbed these the 6 pillars of influential content because they're the pillars on which influential content stands. Your first pillar is credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your lived experience of how you made progress, how you got from where you were in the land of suck to success, how you're going to help people achieve that as well. Even if that success is merely progress and progress is good enough. Credibility is not throwing credentials. Let me tell you about my credentials. Let me talk to you in this entire introduction about all of the work that I have done, how awesome I am. I'm going to open my TED Talk. I've ghosted a couple of those. Here's how awesome I am and why you should trust me. That doesn't work. It's the stories that you have lived. And I know a lot of left-wing and liberal and progressive types tend to use that phrase lived experience. But we really want to popularize it across the spectrum because it is such a useful keyword. Because when you show people that you've been where they've been and you've already gone where they want to go, boom, you are credible. Any way you can share where you've been that they are now, that means understand your audience, you are instantly credible.
I love it. I was listening to Stu McLaren's Tribe Experience kickoff ceremony today, and while he told us about what you're going to get out of this course, he also spent a significant amount of time describing his very first sale and all the feelings and emotions around that, and talking to his future wife and all the details. So you can really feel his experience and even had a picture of him as geeky self with his first ebook he ever sold. And it's just what you're talking about. You can really identify like, oh man, this guy gets me. Yes, he's Stu McLaren, but he gets me.
Yes, because a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, he was the geek,
Yeah.
he was the nerd, he was the nobody, and he became a somebody. And bringing people to those moments. And I have every author, every speaker, every communicator use those stories that cultivate the emotion that you want them to experience. What will make you seem credible to your audience? And it's not just, well, just, okay, just tell a story. Well, it's got to be a story people can relate to, which means there's going to be some sort of emotion that you want people to feel. So the better you understand your audience, the better you can choose the right story and the right emotions that is going to create a sense of credibility. So that's the first pillar as part of this influential content framework, the means to the end, that is you being more persuasive in everything you write, you say, you tweet, you publish. Second pillar is connection. This is where you're telling your readers what they actually want to read. You know this because you've gone and looked at the feedback of other books, other courses, other products, whatever it is that you're selling. You want to know exactly what your readers want, what they don't, and structure your message, whatever that looks like, whether it's a tweet thread or a 10-page nonfiction book series, 20,000 word ebooks each. Structure your content to give people exactly what they want and also make sure they're following a step-by-step path to get there. What bums me out about so many books that could have been great is I open up the table of contents and it's chaos. There is no connection between what I see in the table of contents. I see this with articles and I'm grabbed by the clickbait headline and I go to it and I don't really see how it's going to fulfill its promise. Like, where is the step-by-step path to get to the promise of this clickbait headline being fulfilled? I'm just not seeing it. Doesn't feel real. So another way to think about connection is through the features and benefits metaphor. Okay. When you know exactly what benefits your audience wants, like what pain they want to relieve or what experience they want to have or how important it is to them to make money or what sort of time they want to save or even what they want to get done, better understand that. And you can call that out in your copy, in your tweets, in your messages, in your speeches, your books. Here's what you got to connect it to, though. You must connect the features and the benefits. Everyone talks about people buy benefits, not features. Talk more about benefits than features. That is entirely wrong. Entirely wrong. Good copywriters know how to talk about benefits, but you're the expert. That's what this conversation began with, Brian, right? You're the expert. You need to connect what it is that you'll be doing, how it's going to work, to what you're going to promise them. So that is where you bring the two together. That's where the features and benefits come together. Make sure that you are giving people what they want, which is, it's true, they want the benefits, but you're explaining how they're going to get there in your table of contents, in the structure of your article, in your tweet thread, in your sales bullets, whatever the case may be. That's connection.
If someone came to you and said, I'm going to cure cancer, and you said, how? And they said, because I have a magic wand, you'd say, no, that's a sham. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm going to cure cancer so that you can spend more time with your family. We're going to cure cancer so that, and I just see a bunch of so that's and becauses and in order to's, which they say you're supposed to use in copy. I just can't believe you. I see so many nonfiction books written by people that you would assume know what they're talking about. Go to the table of contents, and if there's no demonstrable path to fulfill the promise of the title and subtitle, they don't know what they're talking about. They are anti-persuasive.
What I tell people with the Redbeard Accelerator is that your problem is you don't have the right systems deployed in your business. And what the outcome of that problem is you're stressed, you have too little time available, etc. Here's all these problems. And the way to solve it is to consistently ship slightly better solutions than what you have. And so every week, we're going to design something that's a little bit better than what you have. And then of each of the calls we have each week, we're going to choose one thing. Each person chooses just one thing of everything we discuss that they can actually deploy in a week. Because if you ship small incremental improvements every week, that if it only takes you an hour to deploy, you can probably find an hour or two that over time, you'll eventually have better systems in your business. That really big solutions often don't work because you're too busy. That's why you need to have better systems. You don't have the time. And when I hear, Joshua, about your process that you don't like, hey, I'll go write your book in 30 days, money back guarantee, just 30 days and it'll be done. That's not what you're selling. And if you were, you're like, hey, give me 30 days and I'll write you a best-selling novel or a book. That's not credible at all. I know that's not true. It's like, this guy's a fraud. But actually, how long does your process usually take when people hire you to be a ghostwriter?
Yeah, usually it's 5 to 10 months from beginning to the book is published and available for sale in over 100 countries as hardcover, softcover, ebook, and audiobook.
And that just feels more credible. Like, okay, well, if I have a big problem, if my problem is I want a book that's going to help me sell the next 1,000 people into the Redbeard Accelerator, and does it take 5 to 10 months to create the marketing collateral that's going to make that happen? Well, that feels appropriate. That's the results I want at the end and the input I have to put in the beginning. I can see the connection there.
Yes. The benefit is you have authority, credibility, and expertise unlike any other because you're a published author.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, how did we get there? 10 months with Joshua Lisec, period. That's the feature, right? You got to connect the two of them. Brian, you were talking about picking, one thing, getting down to the granular and the Redbeard Accelerator and talking about systems. And the simpler that you can make what you're doing, the easier it's going to be. Well, funny enough, that's exactly what the third pillar is. Compelling writing, that's the third pillar, is compelling, is writing at the 5th grade level. Simple English, easy to read. Physicians can understand it. Kids can understand it. People with a social media attention span can understand exactly what you're saying. That's something that people can sink their teeth into right away. Use a free app like HemingwayApp.com to check out your reading level. And you ideally want to get to 5th grade. Short, simple sentences, one idea per sentence. That's compelling writing. I want to make the most of the time we got here, Brian. So if it's cool with you, I'll breeze on through the remaining pillars here.
No. People should go follow you on Twitter to go get the other 3. I think it's on Twitter that you shared Hemingway and I started using it. And I started analyzing some emails I wrote. I'm like, I'm going to follow what this Joshua guy says. He appears to be a pretty good ghostwriter, recommended by Scott Adams, Ed Lattimore, etc. So I think people should follow you to hear the other 3 or go get on what's the website where they go start a conversation with you?
Yeah. My favorite place to send people actually is to book a time with me to talk about whatever they need to have persuasionized, whether it's written yet or not.
Definitely a verb.
Yes. entrepreneurswordsmith.com/book. That's the way to book a time to chat with me. No obligation, free consultation. What I can promise is that people will find a way through our discussion to learn how to make whatever their project is commercially viable. Whether they want to write a new course or they want to do a new book or blog or something like that, we'll actually get it done. What does a commercially viable version, a persuasive version of an idea actually look like? That's what we'll talk about.
Beautiful. Joshua, did you know that I'm a mountain climber?
I did not.
I've climbed Mount Rainier twice, and after the first time, it was 2 or 3 times harder than I thought it would be. By the second time, I had some clue. But my first time, I really didn't understand. But afterwards, it redefined me for the rest of my life about what I can actually do. It was life-defining. And because I follow you on Twitter, you asked not that long ago, you said something like, what is the most outrageous advice you might give to someone? And I answered, go write 10 onboarding emails in a single day and publish them. And then I thought, well, crap, if that's what I might tell someone that's outrageous, why not just try it? And so it was about a month ago that I said, okay, my output for a Monday, which is my Redbeard working on my business day, I'm going to go try to follow my own advice. And I managed to get 11 emails written, not out the door, but written, over 6,200 words in a single day, which is vastly in output, like so much more than I'd ever written before in a day. And it redefined like, okay, apparently now 6,200 words, that's what I can do. If I'm doing less than that, I'm taking it easy. And for everyone who's on Twitter, I really recommend you follow Joshua, because if you get inspired like I got inspired to take action, even without having talked to the guy or gone to entrepreneurswordsmith.com/book, if you can upgrade your writing skill just by following Joshua on Twitter, I've had a pretty profound change just in my perception of myself, just like climbing Mount Rainier. And Joshua, thank you for that one simple question on Twitter.
My pleasure. It spawned some great conversations. And yes, I do remember, in fact, seeing you talk about the onboarding emails that you got done.
It was wonderful. So folks, on Twitter, it's Joshua Lisec, JOSHUALISEC. The website is entrepreneurswordsmith.com/book. Joshua, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, Brian. Thanks again for having me on.